we feel as though we're a family traveling together. And you do feel that closeness, and we know that that directly translates to the music. I've been on tours where I've had to be up several, like a week to 10 days in a row at 4 a.m.
Wow.
Many times I wake up, I don't know what country I'm in. It really taught us how to kind of make the metronome feel good, how to make the metronome swing. Well, I think that's really important for people to kind of check themselves that way, internally without an external time source.
Tom Kennedy on the bass.
Hola a todos, hi everyone, from Cartagena to the 5 continents and the universe, Mr. Online Drums TV friends. Our channel, born as a drum channel, but we are connecting with some of the best players in the world. And an artist who is on top of my list is the artist we have with us today. From DCLSP to Tania Maria, Steps Ahead, Mike Stern, Dave Weckl Band, Lee Ritenour, Dave Grusin, hundreds and hundreds of recording sessions, and five great solo albums. Please folks, it's for me a real pleasure having here today with us thousands and thousands miles away man. I love the internet. Please welcome Mr. Tom Kennedy. Hello Tom, how are you?
Hi everybody, how are you doing, Juan?
Great, thanks for being here Tom. I was looking forward to talking with you about music, life on the road, friendship on stage, about the great artists you play with, improving with our instrument, and of course your great solo albums. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely, let's go.
Tom, where are you now and what are you doing these days?
Well, I'm in New York. I'm actually home for a few weeks, which is really extraordinary. I'm normally touring so much that I don't get home for very many weeks at a time. So this is really a luxury for me. And I'm actually working on a new project. I want to do a new recording this year. And so I'm doing some work, some work on my computer and trying to get some sequences together for the new music that I'm going to work on. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be yet, but I'm letting the music kind of decide which way it's going to go.
Do you mean a new solo album?
A new solo record, yes, that's correct.
That's great. Tom, you are always playing and recording with some of the best artists on the planet. Mike Stern, Dave Weckl, Denny Chambers, Randy Brecker, and some weeks ago you were touring in Japan with Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin, two of my favorite artists of all time. How was that tour with Lee and Dave?
Lee was not able to come at the very last minute. There were some other issues. He was not able to be there, but Dave and I just had a ball together. We had it was basically a Japanese big band of some incredible players. There's so many good players over there, and so the horn section was made up of all Japanese players. And then we had a great drummer from Germany with us, and we had John Beasley was there on auxiliary keyboards, and so it was amazing. It was kind of like these melting from all over the world, all the continents were represented. It was really incredible thing, and Dave is just such an incredible human being as well as musician. I mean, to play this music that it has been so iconic in my life, and I think many other people too, since that recording came out in the 90s. Just his arrangement, his take on these beautiful songs, and to have the chance to stand on stage, and play these things, and to look over and see Dave behind the piano, and Dave looking up at me, winking and smiling as he does, and just being the incredible person that he is, was these are the moments that you live for. They truly are.
Absolutely. Tom, let me say something about Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin, because they represent in a beautiful way how there are no frontiers in music. We are not only talking about fusion, rock, soul or jazz, Latin or classical, or a soundtrack. We are talking about emotions, about music. About Lee Ritenour, Grammy winner and 17 Grammy nominations. He played and recorded for Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Barbara Streisand, Frank Sinatra, In Pink Floyd's The Wall, Dave Grusin, a composer with many original soundtracks for great movies with several Academy Awards. This reminds me how all the styles are connected to each other.
Absolutely.
And the beauty of the journey of music. What do you think about it?
Well, I agree with you. I totally agree. It's all good music, you know, and I've said that for many years. You know, I grew up playing. I started as a really, you know, mainstream kind of, you know, acoustic bass player. But it wasn't, you know, I mean, as soon as I was introduced to the electric bass, everything really changed for me because I started hearing, you know, I started becoming aware of other types of music, you know, including, you know, Lee was one of the first, like, major influences, you know, with his music like Captain's Journey and Captain Fingers and those early records that were, you know, that I was hearing, and I was, you know, and I heard Steve Gadd, and I, you know, and then I heard a lot of, you know, I've been listening to a lot of Dave's music for years with Sergio Mendes. So there was all of this, you know, and his amazing string writing with those things. And then I started hearing him playing the piano with Ritenour. So it might have been a little out of sequence, but for me, it was good that way because it made me realize, without having a timeline of how these, you know, how the music progressed, just the fact that there were so many different styles, there were so many ways you could go with the music, and so many things that I found myself incredibly interested in at a very early age.
All the bandmates and incredible artists you play with and do regular tour every year, you are not only related to all of them in a professional way. You have years and years of friendship with them, and that's important for touring, right, Tom?
Well, it definitely is, and it's the type of people that I've been so fortunate to play with. Pretty much everybody else that I am on the road with, I'm very comfortable with. We feel as though we're a family traveling together, which is a necessary thing. It's, you know, it is glamorous in the sense that we get to go and play our music for other cultures, and, you know, we get to meet new people all the time and see the culture, you know, all over the world. But traveling is very difficult. Schedules are very difficult. You know, I've been on tours where I've had to be up several, you know, like a week to 10 days in a row at 4 a.m.
Wow.
To wake up in your hotel. You wake up, you don't know where you are.
Wow.
Many times I wake up, I don't know what country I'm in, you know, or city. And you get up and you wake up and you walk downstairs. You're the only one in the lobby. They're usually, you know, buffing the floors, and it's you know, there's nobody there. You have to wait 5 or 10 minutes for the desk, you know, for somebody to come to the desk to check you out, you know, and then everybody starts bringing their luggage down, and slowly that comes together, and everybody is just, you know, exhausted, of course, because we just played a big gig the night before. You know, and so then the van will pull up, and this is kind of a blow by blow description of this, but it kind of just kind of gives you a little insight. Everybody kind of stumbles onto the bus, and most of us just kind of lay there and try to sleep the best we can while we're being transported to the airport or wherever we're going, or the next town. You know, if it's somewhere close. But, you know, then there are those 8 to 10 hour bus trips too. Wow. that we take, and not to mention, you know, 14-hour flights. Yeah. One person says, "Oh, we have a couple hours here. Let's have breakfast." You know, all of us will usually just kind of go and sit together and eat and talk about whatever. And you do feel that closeness, and we know that directly translates to the music.
Absolutely. Tom, you have been touring the world for decades. If you keep in mind all the aspects of touring, traveling, the audience, economics, festival organizations, how do you see that evolution from the past until now? For worse, for better, just different? How do you see it?
It's a very interesting question. I mean, there's so many answers to that, but I do have to say that the thing I miss about touring in the old days, when I was touring, like in the 80s and 90s, let's say, was that there used to be what we called a circuit in Europe, where certain bands would go over, and there were certain places, there were certain venues that all of the bands played. And so we would basically follow each other around. And I remember leaving messages for, the next band in the hotel at the lobby and saying, when this band shows up, give them this letter, because we knew the next band was coming to play the next night. And so we would kind of follow each other around. Now it's just kind of a different scene as far as the way people are booking tours these days.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of all over the place. Like we will, these days we'll play a concert in Rome, and then we will fly to Stockholm, Sweden the very next day and play a show. And then we'll go back down to Spain, and then we'll go to, I look at these tour schedules and I think, okay, well, that's, that's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
It just is these days. And I think it has to do with, maybe just timing of things. I think there's a lot more accessibility now. I think it's easier to get places. I think there are a lot more flights going. There are a lot more flights, and it's a lot easier for people to get from point A to point B. But it definitely makes it harder for us because it's a lot more challenging. It's a lot longer travel. It makes for a much longer day. And when you're in the middle of a tour, that really makes a difference.
Yeah,
it really makes a huge difference. So we try to schedule in, a couple of days off, to kind of just regenerate, get the, so we can actually get a little bit of sleep. That's always a good thing. The world is opening up so much now, which is such a great thing for jazz music and for music in general. But it makes traveling that much harder.
Absolutely.
So it definitely is a challenge for everybody these days. And I don't think any of my colleagues would disagree with that.
If even without knowing each other, we can connect and express many things together through the music. Imagine if you have a great friendship with them. For example, you've been playing with Dave Weckl since your early days, thousands of concerts, albums together, road, family, flights delays, everything, the bad things and the incredible things. I'm sure with your other bandmates too. How does that friendship affect to your playing on stage? I mean, what specific moments happen on stage, playing-wise, that couldn't be happening if not for that friendship?
I know exactly what you're saying because I experience it all the time. And Dave and I are, it's fortunate for me that we're playing together a lot. We have quite a bit of touring coming up this year, starting in April. And I think it's more, and you will probably relate to this just with whatever old friends you have. I know all of us have people that we've known for years and years and years. And Dave is, definitely, we met when we were 15 years old.
Wow.
So that's been a few years. And we've, and as you said, we've spent a lot of time on the road. We've spent a lot of time talking. We know each other. We know each other's playing. So I think it's, when you're with an old friend like that, when you're with someone that you completely trust, it's less about, I think it's less about noticing specific things that happen, maybe even in the music, although occasionally we'll do something together. I think it's just the little look. It's like the little smile. It's like the little grin, or just that look that we'll look at each other and we realize that we're both locked into the same thing without having to say a word. And I know that translates off the bandstand as well. A big factor in that is the fact that when we first played together, a magical thing happened. There's something in your core that just relates to other players. And it became very apparent from the very second that Dave and I played together. And we just happened to be playing with my brother, who was an incredible pianist. I'm sure a lot of people know Ray Kennedy. And we started, we just kind of sat down and started playing, and we had a couple of horn players there with us, and it just happened. We immediately started smiling and laughing, and it was like we'd played together forever. So that's magic.
talking about that deep connection with you and Dave, there is a highlight in your performances when you play with the Weckl Band or with Mike Stern. It's that incredible drum and bass duet that you play with Dave. What's the story behind it? How did it come up, that drum and bass duet?
Well, we as with anything else, after you play, you kind of fine tune it as you go. But I was just, we had been doing a thing where we kind of just jam a little bit. In fact, if you remember the track on Rhythm of the Soul with the trio with Jay and Dave and I, that was kind of based around the idea. That's kind of what we were kind of looking at, and we were, we weren't quite sure what it was going to be, if we were just going to jam over a particular chord and we were going to trade, or what we were going to do. And I remember at one point, I think it just became apparent one time on the gig that it was going to be a duet, that we just decided we were going to play a duet. And I give, and this is definitely a shout out, because Dave and I were kind of playing, and we were playing an up-tempo thing, and we were kind of sharing, playing over a chord change or whatever it was. I think we were in B flat probably. And all of a sudden I remember when my days and steps ahead, when Mike Brecker and Peter Erskine would break into a duet together.
Wow.
On one of the compositions we were playing, and Mike would always end up his solo. The last chorus, he would play a rhythm changes chorus. He would always play the changes to the rhythm changes. And I think in the middle of it, I was just inspired to go there. I do remember that the basic idea was playing over a form like that. And so, that kind of stuck. But the thing is that I feel like every time we do it, it's very much different. The approach is different, and I know Dave loves to start it out differently. I'll just wait for him to start some kind of a groove, because he always has an idea of the way he wants it to begin. And then we will kind of break it down into that, and then maybe, stop for a second, and then, we'll go into an up-tempo. Sometimes it never gets to the rhythm changes. Sometimes it'll just be some kind of a groove that we'll play over, and then we'll morph into something else. That's maybe off of the dotted triplet, that will become the new tempo, or maybe just out of just out of the blue, something will come up and we'll hit something together. And that's the amazing thing about playing with people and knowing people that well, is that it's not the kind of thing where you're a deer in headlights. You actually, it's actually a very comfortable transition when you go from one thing to another with someone because you could sort of, anticipate where it's going to go to a certain degree.
It's a great moment of the show, for me and for everyone, for sure.
Well, thanks. I look forward to it.
Tom Kennedy on the bass.
Dave Weckl on the drum.
About timing, I would like to talk about timing on our internal clock. Something that is remarkable is your sense of time, Tom. I'm referring to the time feel in the song, in the groove, in the note placement, and sharing solo bumps with Weckl, Dennis, or Jeff Hamilton. Some tips about how to develop our internal clock, being drummers, bass players, or any player?
Well, the one thing that really helps me, I've always felt that I have a good sense of time, and usually if I'm playing something, if I practice something at home, if I'm walking the bass, or I'm just trying to warm up with my hands, I'll play I'll play a bass line and I'll notice that 5 or 10 minutes later at the same tempo. So I think that's a really important for people to kind of check themselves that way. Internally without a an external time source. I think it's really important. Like I'm staring at that beautiful drum set that you have right there, and I think, I could turn to the right, and I could take the sticks and I could play a groove, and that would be so much fun just to sit and play a groove and allow that groove to settle in and have and feel the depth of that groove. And I think that that's the real secret of it. I think it's actually getting into what you're doing practice-wise. It is a performance in a sense, because it's all for you. It's your performance for yourself. And I always try to look at that way. Whenever I grab a bass or I'm doing something in my studio here, if I'm working on a track for somebody, I take every increment of what I'm playing and try to lock that as much as I possibly can. Just as a drummer uses all of their limbs and tries to lock everything in together, you want to make sure that one on the bass drum hits where your right hand hits. But it's very true. The things that are supposed to be played together should be played together. But it's also about having a spirit. It's also about having meaning and purpose to what the note is that you're playing.
Some specific exercises or routines for that, without or with a metronome?
I do it both ways. There are advocates of the metronome and there are non-advocates of the metronome, and I see both sides of that. And I've actually learned a lot from talking to both sides, talking to people on both sides, because they both make very valid points. I grew up playing with a metronome, and my brother and I actually used to practice with a metronome when we were kids. We had a little Franz metronome, a little box, and a little dial on it, but it had a nice click. It had a real defined click, and we would put that on top of the piano, and we'd set a tempo, and he and I would play jazz tunes, and we would play at those tempos. And it was great practice for us. It really taught us how to kind of make the metronome feel good, how to make the metronome swing, which I think is a really important thing, because then you're kind of in charge of what's happening. You're creating the swing, you're creating the feel. So then when you get together with someone else that feels good, like in the sense of discovering Dave at this camp and playing together with him, we had all the tools that we needed to make the music sound good without the drums. So with the drums, it's just going to be that much better.
Absolutely.
So I think I know it's not a very specific practice technique, but the idea is to create a roundness, a feel, a swing with that external source. And I think that's where maybe a lot of people miss out when they're practicing. They're trying to, you need to play where the thing is, obviously, and you need to lock in your limbs, but that's the very basic, phase of it. Then the dynamics come into play, and then the roundness of trying to get the feel to feel like it swings.
Yeah, that's great.
To feel like it feels when you listen to that favorite record, when you listen to that Earth, Wind and Fire record, or when you're listening to Elvin, or when you're listening to Jimmy Cobb, or whatever you're listening to, and you're getting that feeling, and it's that round feeling, it makes your body move. That's what you're looking for.
And for achieving this, I think that a really great thing is recording ourselves and listen back to it, right?
Very good. I'm so glad for the technology these days, because, back when I started, I had a cassette recorder. It was a very basic thing with an external mic, and I mean, it was okay, and I was very lucky to have it, but I'd play the bass and I'd listen back, and I had this little earphone back in those days, like a little radio earphone, and you could sort of hear what you were doing, but it wasn't like today. You in your home studio, you record at studio quality. I mean, at CD quality. So that's really great for people, for guys coming up, and I've really embraced it as well. It's great for me. I love just going in and putting on a loop and just playing with a loop. And I'll still do that for an hour these days. I don't really practice nearly as much as I would like to. When I do, I try to make it something that is actually usable, that I'm going to use when I play on the bandstand.
Yeah.
I will, if I have to learn a new song for a tour, that's really good practice for me. Absolutely. Because that's usable stuff. And I'm also trying to not only learn the song or learn the lines that I need to learn, but as I said before, to make it feel like music, to make it feel good, to make my part be able to stand alone and have a great feel and know exactly where you are in the song. That way, when I put the rest of the group around me, it's going to be just that much better.
About drummers, Tom, you have played with the best drummers in the world: Dave Weckl, Dennis Chambers, Virgil Donati, Simon Phillips, Steve Smith, Steve Gadd, Jeff Hamilton, and on and on. They all are very different, but what do you think that they all have in common?
The main thing for me is the simple, it comes back to another very basic thing, they all spell out the music and make it a very obvious thing. It's very clear. That's what I love the most about playing with all of them. I've had so many people come up to me and say, it's playing with Dennis and Gadd and Weckl and this guy, Steve Smith. I mean, that must be incredibly hard playing with those guys. I mean, they're at such a level, and it's incredibly easy. It's just the opposite. It really is, because a good musician will spell out the song. A good musician will spell out the music. They will make it very obvious. Musicians are not trying to trick each other, and it's not a competition when you're on the bandstand. As you talked about earlier with being a family, yeah. We're a family when we go up there. There's a lot of trust. I've been in situations where I would come into the gig and I was a little tired and maybe I wasn't on my A game, and I've gotten some looks from drummers like, I remember being told, "Hey, I need you over there. Wake up." It's happened. And it happened a long time ago, and I never forgot it. I never forgot that. And it was interesting because this kind of comes back to the question at the end of the interview that you're going to ask me, about what musicians say that affect your playing. But that's one that I've never forgotten. I remember a couple of times that happened to me where I was really tired on the road, and maybe I had a drink after the gig, and then we had to get up really early in the morning. Didn't get a break all day and had to play the show. We'll run in and play the show.
Wow.
And so things like that happen, but it is a trust, it's a trust. And with that is I call it a tolerance too, because, it is, life changes every day.
Yeah. Our
lives change every day. There's something different every day. So when we play music, it's going to be slightly different. It's going to be different from day to day to day. So that's why it's really important to bring it every day.
All these drummers have incredible timing, great feel, technique, sound, and they all put their own personality in their playing, in the groove, in everything. What differences do you find on them, time-wise, playing, for example, the same tune with different drummers? What different musical reactions do you have playing the same song but with different drummers? I'm thinking, for example, playing a Mike Stern tune with Dennis or Dave. What difference do you feel time-wise, keeping in mind that they both play like masters?
For me, it's like walking into my apartment and then coming over to your neck of the woods and walking into your apartment. I will feel comfortable in both places. I will feel incredibly comfortable in both places, but they're different.
Yeah.
But you may not even, it may be indistinguishable. For me, when I'm playing with Dennis, I'm playing with Dennis, and it feels amazing. And we have this thing that we do that feels incredible. When I'm playing with Dave, we have this thing that feels incredible. There's an understanding. When I play with other guys, when I play with Steve Smith, we have this thing that feels great together. I've never really been one to compare what the difference is, because I'm too busy locking in and trying to make something that works with someone. So I think for me, if I started thinking about differences, like that would just confuse, it would kind of cloud the great connection that I have with these guys. I feel like they all feel incredibly solid, and I can completely rely on them. I think they all rely on me. I think we have a great, playing relationship, and I always think of it as a handshake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always think of that because it really is a joining of people. People coming together to meet at this point, which is the music. So as I say, I think it's the old phrase, apples and oranges. They both taste good. They both taste good. They're both just as satisfying as the other.
There are some tunes that I am addicted to, and one of them is a tune by Lee Ritenour called, and I love the name, Work on It. Did I say well?
Yeah.
Weckl, Makoto Osone, Ritenour, Kennedy, contagious groove and melody. Tell us about how that tune from the Lee Ritenour album was recorded. Work on It.
We did it in LA. We were actually playing at Catalina's that week, and as with that group, actually the way it came to be. Makoto, is from Japan, but he was in the States doing some other things, and he was available, and and Dave would happen to be available at that time too. And so we did a little short tour, and we ended up at Catalina's. And I remember that we had played several nights together, and we had rehearsed this tune several nights. And Lee, being the consummate studio guy that he's been for forever. I mean, Lee is Mr. Studio as far as I'm concerned. Nobody has more experience or better experiences than he does, and he is so well versed in it that when he puts together demos for you to listen to, it's studio quality stuff. It sounds great. He would disagree with me, but I've heard some of he sent me demos of songs that, to learn, and they're incredible. I mean, everything is there. They're very well spelled out. And so basically the entire song was there. It was really just the point that you were making earlier about putting your own spin on it, making it sound like you.
Yeah.
And that's really just something that happens naturally. When you use certain musicians, you're going to get a certain feel from those musicians. You're going to get a certain blend from those four musicians. If it happened to be a different bass player on the session, if it happened to be a different drummer, if it happened to be a different pianist, it's going to be a different thing. But I think the magic was the fact that it was the four of us playing together, and also that we had a chance to kind of play it a few nights and really feel comfortable with it, and try some things that maybe we decided we didn't want to do. Getting back to the idea of making a mistake, or thinking, oh well, that doesn't necessarily sound that great there. Let's do it this way. And just having a little experience with the music, I think that really made it a magical thing when we went to the studio, because we didn't have to think about the song. We just went in and played.
Yeah. Was it recorded live in the studio?
It was live in the studio, yeah. I mean, it's as live as it can be, because everything is baffled. The drums are surrounded by baffling, and the piano is surrounded, and the bass is on the other side of the room. But yes, we did play together, and we were at a very good studio in LA and had very good cue mix, and it felt very natural.
Great.
For acoustic instruments, it was incredibly natural.
About online recordings, I know Dave Weckl contacts you very often to have you in his online recordings, and that's great. If we live in Tokyo, Paris, or California, or Cartagena, can we have your bass playing in our recordings?
Absolutely.
Through your website, for example, tomkennedymusic.com?
That's correct, yes, tomkennedymusic.com. And you can just write me a little mail there, and just contact me. What I like to do, and just as a little preview to what I would ask you, is that I would love to hear whatever kind of a demo you might have for your song.
Yeah.
And and if you have any kind of an arrangement, like a something that I could look at, a bass part, the things that you want, the things that you're not concerned about, how much, in other words, how much am I actually going to be improvising the bass parts and coming up with something that I want to do, or how strict a bass part might be, little things like that, just specific things. If the more specific you can be about the tune, then I can get back. I'll respond, of course, right away and give you an idea what.
So, folks, we can have Tom Kennedy in our albums because technology has changed everything, right, Tom?
It's a wonderful thing. It's really great. And, it's interesting talking about the younger generation. The younger generation is a lot more used to doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
Playing on remote recordings where they might put a part down and then add somebody. I mean, people have been doing that for a very long time, but I think especially now I notice that I'm getting a lot of these. I call them tracks by mail. I get a lot of them, and it's really interesting to me. It's just become a different world and a different way to think about it. And certain music lends very well to that. So I think it's very possible, and I think you can have a project that sounds very cohesive, that sounds as though everybody recorded together these days. With the quality of recording as well, makes it very easy.
Tom, let's talk about your music. I've been following you for decades through your bands you play with, and also through the music of your 5 solo albums. Some time ago I listened again to your last solo record, Points of View, that I highly recommend, folks. And again, it's not just a musician's album just for musicians. There are great compositions with beautiful melodies, and you are not alone. Bill Evans, Mike Stern, Lee Ritenour, Randy Brecker, Dave Weckl. Tell us, how was the producing process of that album, Points of View?
That was very interesting. That concept took a while to come to me, but I wanted to show different writing by different people that I've known through the years. A lot of these guys go back to my St. Louis days. Especially the composers. I composed about 3 or 4 songs, I think, on the record, and then the rest of them were compositions by people that I had known for years, and including one of the songs that Chuck Loeb, that we miss him so much. He was featured on this song, and it was written by a great drummer friend of that all of us from St. Louis, we all kind of grew up in this same group of people, Dave and Jay and myself, and then there was Pete and Roger and Jim, and there were just a ton of great musicians that were coming up at that time, and they were all in our age group, and a good friend of mine, Roger Guth, had written this song, and I had actually played on that album for him. And I remember when I heard that song, I thought, oh my, I need to record this. I need to do this, because I just loved his recording, and I thought if I could just kind of represent it in my own way, and then it was just a matter of figuring out who the heck I wanted to play, on what song. But it became very apparent to me when I thought about the songs and I envisioned them in my head, and and I would get on the computer and I'd play them in a little bit and think, how do I want to do this? How do I want to make this song a little bit different? How do I want to put my spin on it? It became very apparent that, you know, I wanted this guy to play on this, and I wanted this guy to play on this. You know, so I think the music kind of led the rest of the process.
Yeah, and I think that Chuck Loeb was the perfect player for that tune, New July.
I believe so too. And it just happened that we had been talking, we played with the WDR band that year. We played music from Steps Ahead with Michael Manieri, and Bill Evans was there playing, and Steve Smith was playing drums. And so Chuck and I had some nice long conversations together and had some nice dinners together. And I had known Chuck for years and years and years, but really had never had spent a lot of time with him. And it was so marvelous to have that time together spent. And so, you know, he was talking to me about maybe doing some recordings for him, and I was, you know, and this album was just a concept at the time, but I asked him if he would play, and he said, of course I'll play. And you know, that's how easy it is sometimes, and just how timing works in life. And I was just so blessed to have Chuck play on this. It was, and what an incredible player, you know, what an incredible player he was and is.
Any chance to have in the future a Tom Kennedy band?
Oh, I'm always thinking about that. That's always on, you know, it's on a back burner, but it's getting closer and closer to the front every day. My thing is that I'm touring so much already. It's very hard for me to kind of work on my own things. But the more I work on my own music, and I would love to do, you know, I would love to tour my band as a supplemental thing to a lot of other things I'm doing as well, because I enjoy everything I do. Absolutely. And I'm at a place in my life where I can really say that all of the gigs that I do, all of the touring I do, are things that I love.
That's great.
That I really enjoy with the players that I love and enjoy.
That's great.
So I would love to do my own thing as a supplement to what I'm already doing. So yes, it's definitely coming.
Tom, we are finishing. What's next? What is in your schedule for the future?
Well, a lot of touring coming up this year. I'll be playing with Mike and Dave. Actually, the Mike Stern Dave Weckl Band. We're touring Europe next month. We'll be going to China the month after, and then back to Europe the following month.
Wow!
It just keeps going. Thank goodness. I'm very blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and somewhere in the cracks of all that, I'm writing and working on this new project, and also trying to maybe set up some gigs of my own. So we'll see how that goes this year.
Tom, time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for your time, your great information, your good vibes, your music. Folks, support the great music and real musicians. Points of view and a new record coming soon. The only point of view that I know is love for the music. I wish you the best on the road, on the stage, and everything.
Thank you so much. A great pleasure to be here.
Adiós, amigo.